in terms of when you're actually reading, I think reading for pleasure and reading for kind of research, historical research, are quite different things.
Reading in itself is a skill, and certainly when I was a student it was something that took me a while to realise that reading for a higher education course is a different way of reading to reading for, say, leisure. So you learn the skills of reading across lots of material and pulling that information together quite quickly, which then again is a really crucial skill to have once you qualify, because that's what you have to do in order to kind of keep your practice up to date. So it's a really important skill to learn as part of a higher education course.
I think it's really useful for students to think about how to skim read, how to kind of take what they need from those books rather than feeling that they have to read it all. So becoming, I suppose, smart readers.
Kind of getting to grips with being able to scan a text and read it quite quickly, to be able to pick out what are the most important parts of that text.
Yeah.
Being selective in your reading. No one's expecting you to read every single book cover to cover,
No.
which I think students, it really puts them off. So being selective about which chapter or which part of the book is going to be the most useful for you.
Yeah.
Think about the best time of day for somebody to read, because if you are reading and you're not a nighttime person, you might spend a lot of time reading but not actually taking any of that information in. So you might be better to read on a morning if that suits you as an individual and you're more alert on a morning. That might be the best time. So it's difficult with shifts, but it's about understanding yourself and when you can kind of read and when you will be able to take that information on board. Try to read in a room where there's no distractions, so you haven't got the TV on and things like that, and maybe focus it to an hour, so that makes it more purposeful time where you'll be very productive, because you can sit and read all night and then the next day you've forgotten half of it, and then you've kind of spent a long time reading but not actually absorbing that information.
In order to do any kind of writing, and I've taught for creative writing as well as journalism, my key advice to anyone is to read. That one cannot become a writer without being a reader first.
I think reading as well is not just obviously useful for all the reasons I've already said, but I think it really helps you to develop your writing skills.
Yeah.
Because you pick up on ways and methods that academics use to write and express their own argument, kind of the vocabulary they use, the structure they use, that kind of thing, and that really helps. So the more you read, you kind of absorb that and kind of try out new techniques in your own writing. So I think that's really important.
It's almost like an alchemy. You can, if you read enough of a particular kind of text, then you can write it.
Is that students read before they write, because we can often spot if a student has written an assignment, made a point and then stuck a reference at the end of the paragraph, whereas actually if you do it the other way around, do some reading first, and that helps you to develop your argument, you'll end up writing a much better assignment.
I think as well it's making sure that you're taking good comprehensive notes as you're reading as well, that you're not just kind of glancing over something and not really taking it in.
Or assuming that you'll remember it.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And I know for me, like, writing something down with a pen and paper really helps it kind of stick in my mind.
Yeah.
So taking notes of the most important things, and also making sure that you write down where it was and the page number, because that's also a problem when you come back to write your essay and you think, that's great, but I can't remember where it came from.
Yeah.
So making sure you've got a note of that as well.
Really passionately fighting against what I call anti-intellectualism, where people say, why do the academics have to put things in big words? Why can't they make it accessible? But I really believe that you can make very complex issues accessible, but also widen our vocabulary. So one of the things I say to students is if you come across a word that you've never seen and you come across a concept that you've never seen, don't go and find the easier book. Make sure you find out what that word is. It's quite easy to do now with Google search.
One of the things I'd recommend is that students try to push themselves a little bit when they're reading, but also to get a balance with not feeling overloaded. So if you are struggling to read, if you find something that's relevant but you're struggling to read it, I think it's a good idea to persevere, use a dictionary to help you work out unfamiliar words, you know, keep persevering to sort of stretch the muscles of your brain, if you like, and develop that ability. But ultimately, if it's totally unintelligible, put it aside and find something else. So I think it's that balance between finding things that are accessible that you can manage to read, but actually challenging yourself a little bit so that you develop your ability to read more complex information.
And letting students understand that it's not just about the number of books that you've read, or the number, it's the extent to which you've drawn on those things and you've really had an inquiry that's informed by what you've looked at. So I've had students have asked me, how many do I need? How many references do I need? And it's like, how long's a piece of string?
Another important thing is to think about where the literature that you're reading is from. So what's is it, because you could be reading anything from an online source that you're not quite sure who's written it, right through to peer-reviewed journals, and I think that's something for students to be very aware of. What's the sort of origins of what they're reading, because if it's just something that Joe or Josephine blogs and said on the internet, then that has a very different sort of status to something that's been tried and tested and written about in a peer-reviewed journal. So judging the quality of what you read, I think, is really important, and that's a skill that comes with practice.
If I'm marking work, I think what makes a good assignment really stand out is where you can see that the students have connected the reading with their practice, so you can see how that theory and practice is coming together, and that they've looked across a range of materials, so not just websites, but they've looked at peer-reviewed information, so that's high quality information, and that they've read a range of types of reading, such as books, articles, policies that are informing their practice. If they can include that sort of thing in an assignment, it really makes it stand out.
I'd also say that students need to read widely, because their lectures and seminars are just an introduction to a particular theme or topic, an overview of a particular event or time period or theme, and to be able to really get to grips with it, students need to go away and then do extra research and additional reading. It's not enough to just rely on what their lecturer has told them, because that's very much an introduction.
Up on the back, the contents page, the index, finding and not thinking that you have to start at the beginning. So kind of trying to think about the book as a tool that you can kind of use in a way that works for the questions you're trying to answer, or what you're trying to research. And it's always, let's find one up-to-date recent article that's relevant to my subject, get my head around that one, and then look at the bibliography. Because it's an instant way of getting up to speed with some of the most recent writing on that subject.
Think about where to get support from, because you can get support from reading things like the module guides, from libraries, from the Canvas site as well, the reading lists, and also there are study skill books, and I think students don't often use those books. There's some excellent books around developing your study skills, and that's a good investment to make that, because it really helps you to develop skills that can actually really save you time.
The place where you're going to live, it's called the library at St Peter's.
Fantastic.
And that's where you're going to be living for the next 3 years. You don't sleep there, but you're going to be living there. So get used to it, get in there, find out who your support staff are, find out what you need. Everything that you need is there, we promise you.
Yeah.
Get on with it.
Oh, that's great.
Really get on with it from day one.